It's an article out of Ars Technica. RTO, or return to office, doesn't improve company value, but it does make its employees miserable. This is a study, and it says data are consistent with bosses using return to the office to reassert control and scapegoat workers. This is from This Week by Beth Mole. And again, small text. If that's Malay, I apologize. I can't see an accent on there. But let's get into this deleterious effects of returning to the office after work from home. For some time, having to work from home during the COVID-19 pandemic was stressful. Parents balanced job duties while caring for children. Some struggled to set up a home office and adjust to new tools like video conferencing. Lonely workdays at home added to social isolation. The line between work and life blurred. For others, working from home was a boon. Comfort, convenience, flexibility, no commuting or rush hour traffic, no office environment distractions. I'll add less getting dressed up. When the acute aspects of the pandemic receded, some who at first struggled began to settle into a work-from-home groove and appreciated the newfound flexibility. Then, bosses began calling their employees back to the office. Many made the argument that the return-to-office policies and mandates were better for the companies. Workers are more productive at the office, and face-to-face interactions promote collaboration, many suggested. Many who, I guess, have never been in an office. But there are few data to support that argument. Pandemic-era productivity is tricky to interpret, given that the crisis disrupted every aspect of life. Research from before the pandemic generally suggested that remote work improves worker performance, though it often included workers who volunteered to work from home, potentially biasing the finding. Although still, if that's allowed, I mean, that's the result. So anyway. For a clearer look at the effect of return-to-office policies after the pandemic, two business researchers at the University of Pittsburgh examined a sample of firms on the S&P 500 list. So these are the biggest companies on the stock market, 137 of which had return-to-office mandates and 320 that clearly did not between June 2019 and January 2023. The researchers collected publicly available data on each company, including financial data and employee reviews. They then looked at what factors were linked to whether a firm implemented a return-to-office policy, like the company's size, financial constraints, and CEO characteristics, as well as the consequences of the return-to-office mandates, employee satisfaction, and financial metrics of the firms. Overall, the analysis, currently released as a preprint, so not yet reviewed, found that return-to-office mandates did not improve a firm's financial metrics, but they did decrease employee satisfaction. Drilling down, the data indicated that return-to-office mandates were linked to firms with male CEOs who had greater power in the company. Wow. Here, power is measured as the CEO's total compensation divided by the average total compensation paid to the 4 highest-paid executives in the firm. Okay, so in other words, firms with more of a traditional patriarchal situation where there's more inequality and a male head of the company that has disproportionate amounts of power, those were the companies most likely to do this because, not in my house and all that kind of stuff. Before the analysis, the researchers hypothesized that return-to-office mandates may be used to blame employees for poor firm performance, but companies that have institutional ownership, like hedge funds or endowments, would not fall for such a blame game, and would thus be less likely to implement a return-to-office mandate. The data supported those hypotheses. Firms with weaker stock performance before employees were able to return to the office were more likely to enforce return-to-office mandates. However, institutional ownership decreased the probability of return-to-office mandates, because when an institution owns rather than some rich jerk with a big ego, they don't really care. They just want the company to just keep paying them money. Whereas, again, when you get that sort of patriarchal ego involved, that's where this was more likely to happen. Although CEOs often justified return-to-office mandates by arguing that returning to the office will improve the company's performance, quote, results of our determinant analyses are consistent with managers using return-to-office mandates to reassert control over employees and blame employees as a scapegoat for bad firm performance. Wow. Almost like, yeah, that's exactly how fucking douchebag CEOs tend to act. Amazing. Unsurprisingly, the researchers also found that return to office mandates were linked to decreases in employee satisfaction. Shocker. Specifically, after a return to office mandate, employees' ratings significantly declined on overall job satisfaction, work-life balance, senior management, and corporate culture. But their ratings of factors unrelated to return to office did not change, indicating that the return to office mandate was driving dissatisfaction. The study has limitations, including a short time frame to look at long-term outcomes of return to office policies and a time frame that overlapped with a labor shortage. Worker responses may be different in a tight labor market. I'm not sure that's really going to influence attitudes as much as people might be more grateful on some level to have a job, although having a job should be a right. But people might be like, well, at least I'm not unemployed. But it's not really going to, I don't think, increase their satisfaction per se. It might increase their counting their blessings score, but it's probably not going to increase their satisfaction. Anyway. Still, the study adds some data to the ongoing debate and feuds over return to office policies. Seems completely common sense to me and in line with what I would have guessed there.